Just doing a video today on my outboard and what type of outboard I have, how I start it, and kind of how I make sure that it stays in good running order. Now, this is a Tohatsu 9.8 4-stroke outboard engine. Now you can get 2-stroke engines. 2-stroke engines are generally lighter, sometimes half the weight of a 4-stroke for the equivalent counterpart, but they do use more fuel. So generally most people stick with the 4-stroke. They are heavier, but they're seen as more reliable and more fuel efficient. Now, you'll see that I have my engine on this trolley. Now, this is just a sack trolley. You can buy a outboard trolley, but they're expensive, so I just built my own. I got a sack trolley or coal truck out of my local hardware shop, and I got a length of 2x4 and 4 screws. So I drilled 4 holes, put 2 screws here, 2 screws here, and then I can attach my outboard. Now, the engine you can lift. It's not too heavy that you can't lift without a trolley, but it is heavy, and I find it more convenient to put on a trolley, and I can just wheel it to my boat and then put it onto my boat. Now, speaking of maintenance, what I generally do with my engine is I always check the oil every 3 or 4 weeks when I'm going to start. Underneath the hood here there's a dipstick, but most new engines do have a light, and this one has one that will blink if it needs oil. Now, regards fuel, I use a fuel stabilizer. Now, the reason I use a fuel stabilizer is when you buy petrol in a petrol station in your car, it starts breaking down after about 2 weeks, the chemicals do, and it can go stale. Now, we don't generally notice this because when you fill up your car, you're generally driving around in your car, so your fuel's constantly being changed. But with an outboard, it might be left lying up in your shed or on your boat for a month or two. So if it's a case where I know I'm going to be leaving mine for a month or two lying up, if it's winter, I would put a fuel stabilizer in, and what happens is it keeps the fuel that's left inside the carburetor is kept from breaking down with the stabilizer, and it's easier to start. Now, the fuel stabilizer is also good to use in your spare fuel tank that you carry in your boat. Now, you should always carry a spare fuel tank in your boat in case you run out of fuel and you need to get back in. So because your fuel tank in your spare fuel can stays in your boat the whole time, you don't want it going stale and then being hard to start if you ever did need it. So when you put the fuel stabilizer in it, it keeps it fresh for up to 2 years. So with mine, I'll keep mine in it for a year and a half, and then I'll switch it over, put more fuel stabilizer in it, and leave it back on the boat, and it'll be good for another year and a half. Now, I just wanted to speak to you about how the engine's cooled. Now, the engine is cooled with water, and here's your water intakes. Now, what happens is when the engine is in the water, it sucks in water here and it shoots out with a jet further on up, and I'll show you that when I have the engine running. But in order to start your engine, you must always make sure that there is a proper supply of water. Now, you can do it 2 ways. You can do it with a bucket, or you can do it with muffs. I use a bucket. Basically, I fill a bucket and I put this in a bucket up to about here, and obviously when it's running, it's shooting out water. Just make sure that it never goes past here, and that's how you can start the engine when you're not near water. The other way is the muffs. They look like air muffs, and each side passes over the water intake and feeds water into the engine to keep it cool. Both ways work fine. I just choose to use the bucket. Now, I'm going to take you outside now, guys, and show you how to start the engine. Just quickly show you, this is the barrel I use. It's quite a deep barrel, but if you're turning the engine in forward or reverse, water can splash out, so the high barrels I find is best. So we'll get this filled and then we'll get the engine on and I'll show you. So guys, I have my engine set up on the bucket of water now, so I'm just going to start it and show you how it's done. I have rope on it here. This rope is only so that I can tie the engine to my boat when I'm driving, so that if my engine fell off, I have a secondary hold on the engine. Now, on the engines, they all have a kill switch, and the kill switch is meant to be attached to you so that if you fall into the water, the kill switch pulls off and the engine shuts down. So you have to make sure your kill switch is on. Now, this is your fuel tank, and on your fuel tank you want to make sure that this little knob here is opened. This allows air in and out, and you need to make sure this is open when you're using your engine. To get this hose on, it pulls back and you click it. You'll hear it clicking in place. Hear the click, it's in place now. To attach it to the engine, it's this side for the engine. Just make sure it stays clean. And how you attach it is you press this in, and there's two holes, in the engine just here, and you line them up and just push it on with this held in and let it go once it's clipped in. Now, in order to get the fuel started, there is a pump on the line, and what you do is you squeeze it until it goes hard. When it goes hard, it means it's took the fuel from the fuel tank and pushed it into the carburetor of your engine. Start your engine now. There's the noise in the background is just an aviary with boards in it, but they're having a good time in the sun, so I can't do anything about that. So well, we're going to start it now. So you pull out your choke and you pull. Throttle on the boat, this is the handle here, and as you hear by doing that it goes louder and quieter, and this is how you control the speed of the boat. So I can just put it down to idle, and that's the normal idle sound of the engine when it's running. Now if you look to the back here, you can see that there's water coming out, and you want to make sure that there's always water coming out. If there isn't, like I said, you have to check those water inlets I told you to make sure they're not blocked. If they are blocked, remove it and start it. If there's no water coming out of the engine, turn the engine off straight away. If you can't find what the problem is, you need to get it looked at because it can destroy your engine. On the note of the fuel, in my fuel tank, what I do is I change my fuel every 3 weeks, and how I do that is after 3 weeks, if I haven't used all the fuel in my tank, I put the rest of the fuel either in my lawnmower tank or I put it in my car, and then I refuel. And therefore I always have nice fresh fuel in my engine at all times. So that's basically how you start your engine, and how you turn off an engine is just pull your kill switch. See, it turns it off straight away, and then you place it back. So that's basically just a running of the engine, and thanks for watching guys, and please subscribe.